What if I told you the best way to fight council tax was to call the Ghostbusters? I'm Rachel, I'm a public and social policy consultant, and I'm on a mission to scrap council tax. Today I want to talk about council tax debt and the ideology behind it. So very briefly, before we call the Ghostbusters, let's talk about the level of council tax debt that there is in Great Britain at the moment. Across England, Wales and Scotland, it's around 8.3 billion in total that is owed to local authorities through council tax debt. Something like 4.4 million people are in council tax arrears, and about a third of those people live below the poverty line. Council tax debt is a structural outcome, and it's important to understand the political ideology at the time that council tax was introduced. So she who shall not be named and her political besties, the neoliberals, introduced a system and an ideology whereby personal responsibility was placed above social responsibility in kind of the hierarchy of what we want to express and how we want to live as a country. And through this ideology, hardship is framed as a moral failure and not a structural one. I genuinely think that they thought that people were in poverty because it was their own fault. But then, is that too generous? I also actually think that they knew that this would happen and that they needed for this moral ideology in order to justify the massive wealth transfer that we've seen in the last 35 years. Now, I haven't got a good word to say about the neoliberals, but I will say this: they were smart and they built systems that were intended to pit us against each other, individual to individual, house to house, community to community, in a battle, a Hunger Games of who can out free market the next person. It's a system that introduces, fuels and stokes our anger towards each other, not unlike a river of slime flowing underneath New York. So, if like me, you watched Ghostbusters 2 as a child and Vigo the Carpathian has been imprinted on your memory ever since, you're absolutely terrified of him, you will know he was powered by a river of slime running underneath New York. And that slime got angrier and stronger the more the people above the surface felt anger, resentment, individualism, hostility and bitterness. And as a self-reinforcing cycle, the stronger the negative emotions that people felt, the stronger the slime and the monster and Vigo the Carpathian got. Terrifying. This is how council tax enforcement ideology works. Council tax collection and enforcement feeds off public anger, and I see it every time I talk about council tax in my comments. Why should I pay for other people? There are scroungers and useless eaters who are draining the system. Perhaps if they worked harder, perhaps if they got a job, perhaps if they didn't have so many kids. If they can't afford it, they shouldn't live there. This is what the system feeds off: this individualism, this resentment, this me, 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 me. I get the politics of envy quite a lot in the comments as well, but it's the politics of selfishness. It's the politics of resentment. It's the politics of I've suffered, therefore you should suffer too. And every time that anger is expressed, it strengthens the ideology of the system behind it. So it's fair to punish people in poverty. Poverty is a moral failure. Compassion is weakness. Poverty has to hurt. It should hurt. You know, they deserve what they get. And this river of resentment is absolutely fueled by council tax recovery. And the system doesn't just feed off our anger, it manufactures that anger in the first place. And let's face it, council tax is a huge amount of money every month for most households. None of us like paying it. And that's the point. It's visible. It's made visible so that we would resent paying it, and we would resent people who cannot afford to pay it even more. The anger has flowed back into our national consciousness, and we're seeing it more and more these days with our anger and our resentment towards migrants, for example. Yeah, council tax debt is absolutely pouring slime into the river underneath us that fuels this anger and resentment that's pitting us against each other, rather than looking at the causes, rather than telling Vigo the Carpathian, the billionaires, that, you know, that they're responsible. It's actually pitting us against each other. So people defend council tax because we're primed to, because the river of slime is making us think this way. Next time you hear this individualism and this me-ness about the whole thing, think about it, compare it. Vigo the Carpathian is actually pulling the strings here. There is a river of resentment running underneath us, and council tax absolutely fuels and reinforces this hatred that we have for the system on purpose, so that we would be pitted against each other and so that we wouldn't look to actually who the culprits were. Now, sadly, we can't actually call the Ghostbusters, but what we can do is shift our mindset and open up our mentality to empathy and away from anger when we look at council tax and we look at these boring everyday systems and actually what the purposes that they're serving and the ideologies that they're fueling. Council tax is the worst. It has got to go. We need better policy.